There is no other way to guard yourself against flattery than by making men understand that telling you the truth will not offend you. Niccolò Machiavelli. Welcome to the point of no return. There is a reason this moment has found you. It is not coincidence. It is not luck. You have just stepped onto a threshold that most people spend their entire pathetic lives avoiding. They reach this line. They feel the strange vibration in the air, the same one you are feeling right now, and then they turn around and run. They run back to the safety of the loop, back to the predictable cage they have lived in for years. But you are still here. That alone tells me that something inside your citadel is shifting. The old ego is beginning to crack. The internal structure you built to survive is splitting open. Most people mistake this for a crisis. They think they are losing their direction. In reality, it is the sound of a shell that has protected you for too long, finally breaking. It is the sound of everything that no longer serves your power, preparing to leave. You are standing in a moment that may appear only once in a lifetime, a rare instant where an ending and a beginning are breathing the same air. Before this door closes, I want you to pause. Ask yourself one thing. It is a simple question, but it will redirect the entire map of your future. Do you have the courage to look directly at what is dying inside you? Or will you return to the familiar place where you no longer belong? If you are still listening, stay. The next part will take you where the masses never dare to go. We are going to face the truth about who you have been and who you must become. Section 1. The signs of strategic death. True transformation always begins with a death. Not the death of the body, but the death of a psychological version of you that has become a liability to your evolution. The frightening part is that this death does not happen in silence. It appears as chaotic signals rising from the depths, as emotions you cannot name, as states of mind that make you feel like a ghost in your own life. But if you look closely, you will see that these are not signs of failure. They are signs that your old ego is taking its final gasping breaths. The first sign is the feeling that you no longer belong in your own house. Everything familiar suddenly feels like a straitjacket. The work you do, the relationships you maintain, the habits you repeat, they all feel like a role that has expired. You are playing a character that no longer matches the soul of the strategist. The mask you have worn for years is beginning to crumble. Next comes a kind of inexplicable anxiety. You don't understand what you're afraid of, but your body is as taut as a bowstring. You feel as if something is about to explode. This anxiety does not come from the outside world. It comes from the weight of the internal shell breaking apart. When the internal self demands change, it never asks for your permission. It simply sends the signal. You feel like you are doing something wrong. But the truth is, you are finally doing something right. You are moving beyond the reach of your old limitations. Another typical sign is the emptiness you feel toward things that once thrilled you. The goals that used to excite you now echo with a hollow sound. You keep moving, but there is no sense of meaning. You keep trying, but the drive is dead. This is not laziness. This is not burnout. This is the total collapse of an outdated value system. When the spirit is preparing to move into a new stage of power, the old desires must naturally turn to ash. Many people will try to pull you back with good advice. They will tell you to focus on what used to make you happy. But how can you return to a ghost? How can you love what existed only to serve a version of you that no longer exists? This numbness is the internal whisper, telling you the chapter is closed. The most dangerous sign is that you begin to see your own darkness with terrifying clarity. You become sensitive to the shadows of fear, anger, and hurt. Locked shadows from long ago are rising to the surface in waves. Most people panic here. They think they are losing their minds. But I tell you, you can only confront your darkness when you are finally strong enough to bear the truth of it. When the shadow surfaces, it is not a sign of collapse. It is a sign of awakening. You may notice trouble sleeping, strange, even frightening dreams. Dreams are the voice of the hidden self. When you dream of ruins, of abandoned cities, or of unfamiliar roads, it is the story of your own life being told in symbols. And the message is always the same. Something in you has reached the time to die. Finally, there is the conflict. You want to change. yet you are terrified of it. You want to leave, yet you feel a strange reluctance to let go. This is the process of the identity fracture. It is standing on the edge of a new world, while your feet still remember the old ground. This conflict is not weakness, it is transformation. You will feel like you no longer resonate with the people around you. Conversations feel dull. Old connections feel loose and meaningless. You feel different, harder to fit in. But understand, you are not alone. You are simply detaching from a lower level to step into a higher layer of psychological maturity. The people who matched your old rhythm are not bad. They're just moving at a different pace, and your soul is demanding a wider, more silent space. How many of these signs are you carrying right now? Be honest with yourself. All this chaos, all this fear, it is pointing to one thing. The old ego is collapsing to create space for a rebirth. This is the most important moment on your path. The internal work will unfold whether you resist it or not. The only choice you have is how you move through it. Will you move in panic and resistance, or will you move with the listening ear of a strategist? Because on the other side of this fracture, someone is waiting for you, the person you lost a very long time ago, long before the world told you who you were supposed to be. Men change their masters willingly, hoping to better themselves, and this hope induces them to take up arms against him who rules. Niccolò Machiavelli. You have seen the first signs of the collapse, but to understand why this process feels like a war, why you struggle, wrestle, and ache when you try to change, you must face a truth that the masses choose to ignore. People will do anything, no matter how absurd, no matter how self-destructive, to avoid facing the reality of their own souls. This addiction to the old self is not rooted in logic. It lives deep in the architecture of your nervous system. It is hidden in the psychological structures formed when you were too small to fight back. In other words, you are clinging to the very version of yourself that keeps you stuck, not because that version is good, not because it is powerful, but simply because it is familiar. Your old self is like a song that has been playing on a loop for years. Even if the melody has become a dirge, even if the lyrics exhaust your spirit, you know every beat, you know every pause, you know every drum, H, it, and the brain, being a machine addicted to predictability, will always choose the familiar track over a new one. It will choose a known hell over an unknown heaven. It will choose the safety of the cage over the uncertainty of the open sky. Understand this, humans can endure almost any amount of pain, as long as that pain is predictable. This is the root of your addiction, and this addiction is not a character flaw, it is a survival mechanism. From a very young age, you learned how to react in order to survive your environment. If you grew up where you had to be the strong one to avoid being hurt, your unconscious recorded that as a life command. As long as you are steel, you are safe. If you had to be the perfect one to be loved, your brain recorded that perfection equals acceptance. If you had to withdraw into silence to avoid conflict, your body learned that hiding equals survival. These lessons, though they were created by a child, became the operating system for your entire adult life. The problem is, the program does not simply vanish because you are now an adult. It runs in the background of your mind. It repeats itself like an old glitched piece of software that you don't even know you're using. This is why we suffer. We suffer from the unlived life. We suffer from the unseen, unfelt, and unexamined parts of our own psyche. Another expression of this addiction is the emotional loop. You can decide to change as many times as you want. You can read the books, you can watch the videos, you can make the resolutions, but the moment something triggers an old wound, your body immediately snaps back into its familiar reaction. You respond with fear, you respond with avoidance, you respond with anger, not because you want to, but because this is the response your nervous system has rehearsed 10,000 times. The person who was once abandoned will be hypersensitive to every shadow of being left. The person who was once judged will be terrified of making a single mistake. The person who was once controlled will react with fierce, irrational anger to any sense of being constrained. These are not choices, they are reflexes. Have you noticed yourself repeating the same relationship, but with different faces? You ask, why do I always choose the wrong person? But the truth is, Your unconscious is pulling you toward a familiar pattern of energy. If you grew up feeling you had to earn love, you will be magnetically drawn to people who make you work for it. If you are used to living in chaos, you will unconsciously seek that same instability in your adulthood. It is not a conscious decision. It is an addiction to what your nervous system has known for too long. This inner contradiction is what makes the old self so hard to kill. We want to escape, yet we fear who we might become without the chains. So, we cling. We cling to old stories. We cling to old ways of thinking. We cling to old reactions. We cling to a crumbling wall simply because we don't know how to swim in open water. This addiction runs so deep that most people don't even realize they are addicted. They think they are that personality. They believe they were born with those fears, but in reality, that self is just a recording of old experiences, playing over and over on an infinite loop. That is why it is so easy to say, "This is just who I am," instead of asking the dangerous question, "When did I learn to become like this?" Most of what you call your personality is simply a set of reactions you have repeated for so long that you have mistaken them for your essence. But the truth, the deeply liberating truth, is this: true FR. Edom demands that you step into a land you have never walked before, a land where there is no map, a land where the true self must lead, not the old reflexes. When you understand that this addiction is not your fault, but the deepest self-protective mechanism of your mind, you begin to blame yourself less. You begin to fear yourself less. You start to see the gap between who you are today and who you were forced to be back then. That moment is when the psychological re-architecture truly begins. The fact that you are still here, listening to these words, is proof. Proof that some part of you is ready to lay the old ego down. Proof that you are ready to stop being a recording and start being the composer. He who becomes master of a city accustomed to freedom and does not destroy it may expect to be destroyed by it. Niccolò Machiavelli. Listen carefully. Understanding your addiction to the familiar is only half of the war. The other half, the part that decides whether you actually cross the border into a new life, lies here. You cannot carry your old ego into a new life because that old ego was built to serve a reality that no longer exists. It was designed for a battlefield you have already left behind. It all begins with a filter. Your old ego does not see the world as it is. It sees the world as it was. It was created from wounds, from limitations, and from the desperate experiences that shaped your survival. If you once lived in a world of doubt, your old ego will see every new opportunity through a lens of deep suspicion. If you once lived in a state of scarcity, your old ego will see every new person as a threat to your resources. And when you step into a different phase of life, a phase that requires openness, courage, and strategic trust, the old ego is still carrying the map of the wasteland. It steers you toward detours, back alleys, and side roads that no longer lead anywhere. I have observed that people do not have ideas. Ideas have people. This is a profound truth of the mind. The world your old ego sees is nothing more than a reflection of old fear, not of current possibility. You could be standing in front of the greatest strategic advantage of your entire life, and it will still appear distorted through that old, cracked filter. The voice of the old version will whisper, "I am not enough for this. I will be exposed. I will fail." Just like the other times, imagine you are trying to step into a clean, bright, spacious room. This is your new life. Yet, your old ego is dragging in piles of heavy, rotting luggage, insecurity, limiting beliefs, the fear of being seen, and the old stories you have been telling yourself since you were 15. Wherever you go, that baggage spills out. Every new room you enter becomes a mess of old trauma. And then you conclude, "This is definitely not my place." But the truth is, you are simply unloading your past into the house of your future. This is why so many individuals receive new opportunities, yet they still live the exact same life. They get a new position, but their thinking is as fearful as a foot soldier's. They meet a new partner, but their reactions are still shaped by the ghost of an old betrayal. They try to pursue a grand plan, but their body still operates on the survival patterns of a child in hiding. So, even as the external circumstances change, their life remains stuck in the mud. They blame fate, they blame the stars, they blame the system. But the problem is not fate. The problem lies in the filter they use to perceive reality. The old ego is like an outdated operating system. You try to install new software. The software of success, of love, of power. But the system cannot run it. You try to open new files, but it crashes the entire machine. You try to upgrade your habits, but the internal platform keeps freezing, simply because the hardware of your mind no longer matches the life you are trying to lead. A new reality demands a new being. It demands a being built from new beliefs, new emotional patterns, and a new strategic vision. The deeper problem is that the old ego does not just distort reality, it also distorts what you think your dreams are. You believe you want a certain goal, but it is actually the desperate desire of the old version of you. You chase trophies that are not truly yours. You seek validation that belongs to the person you once had to become, just to survive. And when you finally achieve those things, you feel empty. This explains why many people reach the summit of success and still feel utterly lost. It is not that they chose the wrong goals. It is that they chose those goals through an outdated filter. In the theater of surrealism, we see this as the conflict between the ego and the self. The ego wants to maintain the familiar cage because it knows how to survive there. The self wants to open into a larger, more dangerous, more powerful life. The new life is the call of the sovereign self. But the old ego does not understand that language. It only speaks the language of the past. And when these two forces collide, you feel exhausted, you feel torn, you feel helpless. Understand this, it is not that you cannot change. It is that two parts of you are pulling in opposite directions. One world is inviting you into the light. The other is pulling you back into the shadows. The choice lies with you. Will you let the true self lead the way into the unknown, or will you let the old ego drag you back into the familiar soul-crushing loop? You are what you do, not what you say you will do. Stop talking about the new life and start dismantling the old filter. Men are so simple and so much moved by their present needs that he who deceives will always find someone who will let himself be deceived. Niccolò Machiavelli. We must now go a layer deeper into the architecture of your soul. You must clearly recognize exactly which layers of the ego are blocking your path forward. Transformation, you must understand, is not a war against yourself. It is a journey of peeling away the false, heavy layers to return to the authentic self that lies underneath. The first layer I often see is the version of you that is so strong it no longer allows itself to be human. Many who walk the path of surrealism have lived through seasons where they were forced to choose, be tough or be trampled. So you chose toughness. You learned to swallow your tears. You learned to lock your heart. You learned that sharing a vulnerability was handing an enemy a knife. That strength served you. It helped you survive when no one stood beside you in the trenches. But now, it has become a liability. It makes you shut your doors even when safety is present. It prevents the very connections that could expand your power. This is the warrior layer. And the warrior is not wrong, but he is no longer needed in a place meant for peace, strategy, and vision. If you feel you always have to be the strongest person in the room, that is the first layer of ego that must die. The second layer is the mask of perfection. Many grow up in environments where love was a currency you had to earn. You were only recognized when you achieved the highest grades, when you behaved exactly as expected, when you became the child who never caused trouble as an adult. You still wear that heavy uniform. You push yourself to the point of total exhaustion. You are terrified of making a single mistake. You are haunted by the judgment of others. But beneath that fear, as the strategist knows, you aren't actually afraid of being wrong. You are afraid of being discarded. Because you fear abandonment, you turn your entire life into a performance. But when your life is a stage, you can never truly be free to rule. If you realize you are trying too hard just to be acceptable, that is the next layer of ego that must fall. The third layer belongs to the self-shrinking one. This is for those who learned that the only way to be safe was to be invisible. Perhaps every time you expressed an opinion, you were crushed. Every time you showed passion, you were called too much. Every time you stood up for yourself, you were punished. You learned to be silent. You learned to apologize for your own existence. Now, as an adult, you find it impossible to voice your needs. You choose relationships where you are belittled because your unconscious believes that is your proper place. This is not you. This is just a response to a time when you were too small to protect yourself. To step into a new life of power, this layer must be set down. Another subtle layer is the ego of roles. Many tie their entire identity to a function: the good friend, the reliable caretaker, the one who always saves everyone. These roles are like uniforms. They make you believe you must stay within a certain mold to be valued. But roles are not identity. They are just functions. As you grow, you must allow yourself to change roles or even leave them behind entirely to discover who is actually wearing the uniform. If you feel you cannot escape the expectations of others, that is a layer of ego holding you captive. Then, E is the rebellious ego. This version appears when you were once excessively controlled. It creates a defiant self just to prove you have a right to choose. As an adult, this ego fights against everything. It fights advice. It fights help. It even fights good opportunities. Not because you want a war, but because the unconscious remembers the pain of having your power stolen. But in a life of strategy, constant blind opposition is not the road to freedom. It is merely an old reflex protecting an old wound. If you notice you reject good things just because they make you feel out of control, that is a layer of ego that needs to be released. Finally, there is the ego that fears being seen. This belongs to those who have felt for too long that they are not enough. They live far below their true potential, not because they lack the capacity, but because they fear the light. They fear that if any light shines on them, it will expose the parts they believe are flawed. But as we know in the dark psychology of the self, wherever there is light, there is also shadow. And that shadow is not shameful. It is what makes you real. When you fear being seen, you don't just hide your weakness. You hide your greatest strength as well. If any of these layers made you suddenly recognize yourself, mark it. Sometimes, simply calling it by its true name is the first step toward liberation. Recognizing these layers is not about judgment. It is like opening the drawers in an old, haunted house. You are looking at each outdated item and deciding what no longer belongs to your future. You don't throw them away in hatred. You set them down with gratitude because they once saved you. They protected you when you couldn't face the world alone. But just like clothes that have become too tight, you cannot keep wearing them without experiencing constant pain. Growing up requires you to grow out of what once protected you. These layers are not worthless parts of you. They are parts that have simply completed their task. We do not evolve by denying our old parts, but by putting them back in their proper place, the past. When these layers fall away, you do not lose yourself. You only lose what was never truly you. Nature creates few men brave, but system and training make many. Niccolò Machiavelli. Every great conquest requires a ritual, not a mystical ceremony, but a psychological one. A series of intentional, cold-blooded actions that force the conscious and the unconscious to meet in the arena of change. This is the bridge between knowing you need to change and actually becoming the change. In the science of the sovereign mind, we use these rituals to dismantle the old architecture and lay the foundation for the new. The first ritual, non-judgmental observation. This is your primary intelligence gathering mission. Every time you react according to an old, weak pattern, you do not attack yourself. You do not indulge in the luxury of self-hatred. Instead, you say quietly to yourself, there is the old program running again. When you get irrationally angry over a small slight, when you withdraw from a necessary connection, when you shrink in the presence of power, you don't see it as a failure. You see it as a window. By simply observing the pattern, you introduce a gap in the machinery. You are no longer the machine, you are the one watching the machine. Awareness is the only light that can dissolve the shadows of the unconscious. The second ritual, cross-examining the old stories. Whenever that internal voice whispers a lie, I am not enough, I will be discarded, I do not deserve this victory. Do not treat it as truth. Treat it as a hostile interrogation. Ask yourself, is this voice actually mine, Or does it belong to a version of me that I had to become just to survive a childhood war? When you separate yourself from the story loses its gravity. You begin to see that most of your fears do not belong to the year 2025. They belong to a time and a place where you no longer live. This is how you withdraw the fuel from the old ego. The third ritual, the practice of the new move. The mind does not change through thinking, it changes through experience. You must act in a way you have never acted before. Even if it feels small, even if it feels fake. If your old habit is to stay silent when you are disrespected, try speaking one cold, clear sentence. If your old habit is to get defensive, try listening with total, unnerving stillness. If your old habit is to doubt your power, try acting as if your victory is already a historical fact. A single small new reaction opens a completely different psychological territory. Each new action is a fresh stitch in the fabric of the king you are becoming. The fourth ritual, stepping into the discomfort. The old self will always try to drag you back to the comfort zone the moment you begin to evolve. But for the strategist, the comfort zone is nothing more than a well-furnished prison. When you feel that rising anxiety, that itch to return to the old ways, you must lean into it. Say to yourself, this discomfort is not a warning of danger. It is the sound of the old ego falling away. You must learn to stay with the fire. Instead of running for the water, discomfort is the only compass that points toward growth. The fifth ritual, creating the sovereign void. No one can be reborn in a constant rush of noise and distraction. You need quiet time. You need your own territory, moments where you can actually hear. Are the whispers of the sovereign self, before they are drowned out by the static of the world. This is not meditation in the soft sense. This is strategic recovery. 5 minutes of absolute silence. 5 minutes of writing your true thoughts, walking alone through the city. In that space, the unconscious sends up the messages you have been too busy to hear. The soul speaks in whispers, and those who refuse to be still will remain forever deaf to their own power. The sixth ritual, strategic visualization. This is not a delusion, it is reprogramming. You must picture yourself reacting differently in your most difficult situations. See yourself remaining calm where you once panicked. See yourself standing tall where you once shrank. See yourself being open where you once closed off like a vault. When you imagine this often enough, with enough intensity, the unconscious begins to accept it as a viable path. And then, one day, when the trigger happens, you will act differently, without even trying. You will have moved from thinking about power to simply being power. The final ritual, the gratitude of dismissal. This is the ritual most people fail to perform. You cannot truly release a part of yourself while you are still fighting it with hatred. Place your hand on your chest and acknowledge the old version of you. Say, thank you for protecting me when I was weak, but I no longer need this armor. I will walk the rest of the way from here. The old ego is not evil, it is simply outdated. It only needs to be acknowledged before it can finally be retired. None of these rituals need to be perfect. None of them require you to get it right on the first attempt. They only require you to be honest. As you practice these drills, you will feel yourself becoming lighter, wider, more dangerous. One day, you will realize you have chosen differently, not through force, but naturally, the way the seasons change, without a sound, yet everything is different. He who is the cause of another becoming powerful is the ruin of himself. Niccolò Machiavelli. You have performed the rituals, you have begun to think differently, react differently, and choose with a cold, new precision. But just as you feel the internal fortress strengthening, a new external obstacle appears. Strange looks, half-joking comments meant to cut, stretches of heavy silence from people who once claimed to know you so well. What very few prepare for is this: your evolution does not just change your inner life, it collides directly and violently with the entire system of relationships around you. When one gear in a machine changes its shape, the entire machine begins to tremble. Before you changed, your presence in their lives was a familiar, predictable puzzle piece. They knew exactly how you would react. They knew exactly what to expect from you. They knew exactly which role you would play in their shared, comfortable story. The brutal truth, the Machiavellian truth, is that many relationships are not based on an understanding of who you really are. They are based on the convenience of who you used to be. When you no longer behave according to the old orbit, their world loses its sense of control. And at the unconscious level, humans are deeply, primally terrified of losing control over their environment. You begin politely saying no to things that drain your spirit. Instead of quietly taking them all on, you no longer laugh at their insults just to avoid a scene. You dare to say, "I am not okay with this." Instead of always maintaining the mask of the strong one, immediately, those who benefited from the always enduring, always available, always shrinking version of you will feel a deep unease. They cannot name it. So it turns into aggression. It turns into complaints, into mockery, into the subtle sting of "you've changed lately. You aren't like you were before. You're acting like you're too special for us now." But beneath those words lies a desperate, unconscious message. "I no longer know how to handle you, and that makes me feel powerless." From the perspective of Surrealism, what you are facing is the breaking of the social equilibrium. Every group, every family, every circle of friends has an unconscious balance. Someone is the peacemaker. Someone carries the responsibility. Someone stays quiet. Someone is the scapegoat. When you step out of your assigned role, the entire system is forced to rearrange itself, and most people, even those who claim to love you, will try to pull you back into your previous, smaller position. Not because they are evil, but because they fear the chaos of a new balance. On the other side, inside you, the battle is just as fierce. Any rejection or judgment from your inner circle touches the deepest, most primitive layers of your psyche. The fear of abandonment, the fear of being misunderstood, the fear of being cast as the traitor or the bad one. There will be nights where you lie awake, wondering, maybe this change is a mistake. Maybe I am being selfish. Maybe I should just go back to the old version so everyone else can feel comfortable again. That is the tug of war between your loyalty to the sovereign self and your unconscious loyalty to the system. But listen to the words of the master. It all depends on how we look at things and not how they are in themselves. The issue does not lie in the event of rejection, but in the way you choose to perceive it. You can see the departure of certain people as proof that you have failed, or you can see it as an accuracy filter, a sign that you are finally stepping into a layer of life where only those who truly see you will be able to remain. Sometimes, what looks like loss on the surface is actually tactical accuracy at the deepest level. When the wrong doors close, they create the pressure required to find the right ones. In the theater of the mind, we look for synchronicity, the meaningful coincidence, the moments when the external world begins to rearrange itself in response to your internal ascension. You stop allowing yourself to be used, and you suddenly encounter someone who respects your boundaries without you saying a word. You stop shrinking in your relationships, and a new connection appears where you are finally heard. You dare to pursue the long-buried desire of your soul, and an unexpected opportunity appears exactly when the resources were running low. These things are not luck, they are the alignment of the inner and outer world. When you change your internal frequency, life must rearrange the broadcast. The people who enter your life at this stage are different. They carry a frequency that matches the strategist you are becoming. You will find them in unexpected places, in a class, in a small, quiet group, in a cafe, in a video you happen to click on at 3 a.m. What makes them different from the ghosts of your past is this. You no longer have to betray yourself to be with them. You can bring both your light and your integrated shadow into the space without the fear of being erased. And that is the clearest sign that you have successfully moved away from the old ego. So, when you face the cold wind of rejection from those who knew you, remember this. They only knew a temporary version. They knew the version that was born to fit the sea, context of a time that has already expired. Your growth is not a betrayal of them. It is the end of your betrayal of yourself. Those who truly belong in your new chapter will understand this without an explanation, and the universe, in its quiet, precise, and surgical way, will deliver them to you the very moment you are brave enough not to return to who you used to be. Where the willingness is great, the difficulties cannot be great. Niccolò Machiavelli. You have stood at the threshold. You have identified the masks. You have weathered the storms of social rejection. Now, you must realize the truth that lies at the heart of this entire odyssey. If you have come this far, if you are still listening to my voice, it means that somewhere beneath all those heavy layers of doubt, you have heard a very small but a very persistent call, the call to come back to yourself. No one else can answer this call for you. No one can walk the final mile of this road on your behalf. Only you know how exhausted you truly are of repeating the same hollow stories. Only you can feel the crushing weight of living a life that is out of alignment with the power you know you possess. The masses will tell you to be patient. They will tell you that change is a slow, agonizing crawl that takes a lifetime. But as the strategist knows, change is a decision. The process may be gradual, but the moment of choice is instantaneous. You can keep living as if you never heard a word of this. You can dismiss the tremors in your soul as just a phase or stress. You can return to the herd and hope that the noise of their chatter will drown out the silence of your own unlived life. Or you can treat this very moment as your turning point. This is the day you stop seeing your inner chaos as an enemy. You start seeing it as an invitation. It is an invitation to step out of a version of yourself that has reached its absolute limit. It is a command to let the dry leaves of the old ego fall so that a truer, larger, and quieter self can finally emerge. The path of the sovereign is not promised to be gentle. I never told you the road would be paved with comfort, but I promise you this: the price of standing still is far higher than the price of moving forward. If you stay as you are, you will pay with your soul. If you move forward, you only pay with your chains. In the philosophy of Surrealism, we do not seek the safety of the masses. We seek the clarity of the heights. We seek the kind of psychological maturity that allows us to walk through the fire and come out as steel. The individual who has died to their old self is the only one who is truly alive. They are the only ones who can think their own thoughts. They are the only ones who can feel their own power. They are the only ones who can no longer be controlled by the primitive strings of shame and inclusion. Somewhere in your future, another version of you is waiting. He is standing in a life you haven't yet dared to imagine. He is reacting with a calm you haven't yet mastered. He is ruling a territory you haven't yet claimed. But he cannot exist until you have the courage to take the first step toward the death of the old. He is waiting for the day you stop performing for a crowd that doesn't care. He is waiting for the day you stop apologizing for your own existence. He is waiting for the day you decide, once and for all, that you are the master of your own fate. The journey of the strategist is the journey of coming home, not to a place, but to a state of being. A state where the light and the shadow are integrated. A state where the internal fortress is impregnable. A state where you are no longer a puppet of the past, but the architect of the future. You have heard the truth. You have seen the map. The door is open. Step through and never look back. The world of the masks is ending. The world of the sovereign has begun. Welcome home. Welcome to Surrealism. Stay unbreakable.